Hi, this is Home and Garden DIY, where you'll get the information you need to get started on the projects that you want to work on. I'm Kara, and today I have Blackfoot Daisy for you, which is a wonderful southwestern perennial covered with white daisy blooms that are pollinator attractors, and they're fragrant. And if you're in a warm climate like we are here in north central Texas, sometimes Blackfoot Daisy will bloom for you all year long, including in the winter. It's just a great plant, and today I'm going to show you how to prune it to keep it beautiful. If you have one that has gone a while without pruning, sometimes they will open up in the center and get what I call leggy, which means it's just branches mostly without a lot of foliage on it, and then the blooms and the foliage are at the outsides or at the ends of the plant. So if you have one like that, let me show you how to prune it to get it to come back into it's a mounding shape that Blackfoot Daisy naturally grows in, and it should be about 1.5 feet tall and somewhere between 1.5 feet and 2 feet across. So the first one in this video is one that has gone too long before it got pruned. It's leggy and it needs to be cut back so that it can refoliate. Today I'm going to be showing you how to prune back a Blackfoot Daisy, and as you can see, this plant, let me pan out, has gotten leggy, and it is sprawled out to the edges here rather than growing in a nice mound that is totally covered with foliage. So again, here's the center of the plant. And what we're going to do today is cut this back to force out foliage on the top of the plant and stop it from sprawling out, because this plant likes to grow in about a mound that's a little more than 1 foot in diameter, and it generally stays about 1 foot tall. And it should be completely covered in this beautiful green foliage and in these lovely little tiny daisy-like flowers that are wonderful pollinator attractors. So we want to get this back covered in bloom, so we're going to have to do some pruning on it. So I wanted to show you here at the center of the plant, it has made some effort, since it's getting some sun here, to put on some foliage here at the center of the plant. And we see some here as well, and you can see back here, just in front of my index finger and my middle finger, there's foliage growing there too, some tiny foliage. So we're going to encourage that growth by cutting all of this back on the edges. So to begin with this plant, I'm going to reach in here and just take off about 3 or 4 inches on the outsides of this plant. Let's see, do it here as well. Just reach in there and cut that off. Come in here, cut off several inches there. You can also break away or cut off some of this brown dead growth that's old underneath here. I'll show you that a little better. It's right here. You can just reach in there and cut that away. And since we want to force the plant to grow here from the top, we're going to leave any nice growth that we find at the top of the plant, and we're simply going to remove this dead growth, this old dead matter that's in the plant. So we'll do a little cleaning up while we're in here. so that this dead growth is not blocking light from this new green growth that we want to encourage in the plant. And of course, it's going to make it look tidier and prettier as well, to not have this dead stuff in there. Okay, see where we've got this long piece in the center? And actually I've got this one here too. I'm going to go ahead on this very long one and cut off about half of that, just to encourage this to grow down further inside the plant. And in just a minute, when I take the camera off the tripod, I'll show you on this particular stem, there is a small bunch of little leaves down there low already. And when we come back to this plant the next time, we will see that that tiny new growth that we've captured today is probably the size of some of this that's further up on the stem. So that's what we're going to be watching for as we prune this plant back. Continuing on with our pruning around the side of the plant, you can see there's quite a bit here that I'm going to take and just cut off. And again, here at the top, we've got quite a long piece. So we're going to cut off just this one bloom and leave this growth here. Let me put my hand behind it so you can see. I'm going to leave that growth, and I'm going to leave this one little bud, and we're going to be watching for new growth here in the center, just like I mentioned a few moments ago. And in this plant, when they get leggy like this, they will put on these new branches that should be standing straight up from the inside of the plant, are actually laying down on these pieces on the side. So once you have cut around the outside and you can see a little better what is happening on the top of the plant, go ahead gently and lift those up and just cut about half of what's sticking up there off, so that this plant can really put its energy into growing upward, not outward. So just like that. Get that in the camera for you. There we go. Cut about half of that off. And again, just cleaning out dead plant from underneath and from inside where we find it, just to make it all look a little bit nicer, a bit tidier, a little bit more green. I'll show you what I did underneath there. So you can see here where I've cut up into the plant, and actually when I go in here and take out some of these leaves, what I want you to see up in here, there is actually new growth right there that was all covered with that old dead brown branches and all of this foliage that I just cut off that was hanging down on the side of the plant. So we already have energy in this plant that's going to be growing and putting on new branching from underneath and filling out this plant. So that's a very good thing to see. Right now, you can see already how much tidier the plant looks and how much we've trimmed it up on the sides here. So I'm going to continue around this side of the plant and show you what this looks like when it's all finished. Continuing alongside of the plant here, you need to be a little bit gentle when you're working with Blackfoot daisy, because it is a little bit of a brittle plant, and it's very easy when you're trying to disentangle all of these long tendrils and branches that the wind has blown around, and trying to find what it is exactly that you're seeking to cut off. It's very easy to break off whole branches. So just be careful about that as you're working with this plant. So we'll continue on around this side. Cut that off. Just cut that little bit off. And then, as I said before, once you have cut off on the sides, as we've already done here, you can lift up some of these tendrils that are up at the top and then prune a little bit off of that so that this is encouraged to grow back in. And again, in a moment, I'll show you what that looks like at the center of the plant, where we've already got this tiny growth that we will see that has gotten larger the next time we come back to the plant. And this will be a little bit harder for you to see, but I'm going to lean this up into the camera. I'm not going to cut off too much from this other side. I think I'll just take the camera off the tripod and show you what I'm going to do here, show you what I'm going to cut, and then I'll make the cut, and then we'll film again. This is from the other side where I just was there, and this is the part that still needs to be pruned back just a little bit. So all I'm going to do here is, from where you can see where my thumb is, I'm going to cut everything off on this side and just leave that little bit. There's another little piece right there I'll cut off. So I'm going to take off about another 4 inches, and then you can see as I pan back out, cutting off those 4 inches, it's going to leave the plant nice and round, and it's going to be back. See, here's the center of the plant, and we want to start getting this plant back where it's rounded from its center, not all lopped over to one side or another the way it is right now, because we have nothing over here. So this is going to help that all do it. So I'm going to make this one cut, and then I'll show you what that looks like. This has now been evened up where I just showed you along this side, so it matches the rest of the plant here. As we go around, we can see from the top we've rounded the whole plant off except this side that's very bare still, and we want that to grow back out, which it is now doing. Just wanted to do a quick update on this Blackfoot daisy that I showed you how to trim back. And just as a reminder, the main issue with this plant is that it was all leaning over to this side, and there wasn't really anything growing over here, because you can see this is the base of the plant. And so when I pruned back and cut all the way around, the goal was to get this to grow up from this side, which you can see we have now happening, as well as now you can see we have new growth down inside here, and there's new growth coming up from these. Sorry about the noise, I'm on a somewhat busy street. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. Now we have this growth coming up from the center of the plant, and obviously you can see we've got blooms on it now, and here you can see it's trying to grow upwards as well. There's another place where we have it growing up from the center of the plant, and I think you'll be able to see this, but down in here we've got even just these places where there's just this little tiny growth, which is all going to be new branchlets and new leaves coming on. So this is doing great. We'll do another pruning on it soon, and we'll see more of this growth coming up from this side of the plant where we want to see it, instead of it being uneven and leaning all off to this side. Okay, here we are back at the Blackfoot daisy, which you can see we've got these fantastic blooms on it. And this is the one that when I came to it originally, we did not have any growth over on this side of the plant, hardly at all. So let me show you again. This right here is the center of the, this is the base of the plant right there. And before, we just didn't have any foliage over here at all. And you can see now we've got all of this that has grown up here. We've got all of this that is growing up from the center, and it's just doing terrifically. So today, what I'm going to do is cut back this side of the plant pretty hard, because as you can see, this is the center, and I need for this plant to be growing out here as well as growing over on this side. So to get it to do that, we're going to cut a whole lot of this away. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And again, just remember with these Blackfoot daisies that you do need to, sorry about the noise, we're on a little bit of a busy street here, but I'll try and be sure to talk up so you can hear me. You do need to be a little bit careful with these because they are a little bit brittle. So just be careful about that as you're pruning. Now again, for some people, doing what I'm doing right now is difficult because as you can see, I'm cutting blooms away. I've just cut quite a few blooms away actually. But if I don't cut this away, I am not going to get this plant to even out all the way around, not just continuing to grow on this side or over here. We want this to be a nice round plant that is completely covered in these beautiful blooms. So now that I've cut some of this away, I actually need to cut that off too. I'll get to that in a minute. You can see down in here I've got just dead wood. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of that away as well. Go ahead and prune away just a little bit more dead wood from down here. And I'm going to prune just a little bit more off the back side here, including these long tendrils here. Now you may say, okay, Kara, what are you doing? We thought that's where we wanted that to grow. Well, I do, but I don't want those pieces that I just cut off to continue to just get longer over there. I want this plant to fill out and be nice and round. So what we'll do while we're here is we're going to just shape this up a little bit more on this side and just even it out some. I'm going to cut it down by just a little bit. And again, we're going to cut off just a few of these blooms. Just a few. Let that get some sun in there. And I am going to go ahead and cut off just a few of these blooms. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've got buds here that I want to have go ahead and burst into bloom. So we'll just cut a few of those off. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time on doing something like this, but while you're already there, you may as well spend just a moment or two doing it to give these buds a chance to come out and bloom. The same thing, we're gonna cut this back again by just a little bit, because even though we do want it to grow over here, again, I don't want it to put its energy into just getting taller. I want it to put its energy into becoming rounder and becoming more of a mounded shape. Because again, the general growth habit of Blackfoot daisy is about a foot to 18 inches tall and about 18 inches to 2 feet across. And when it starts getting a whole lot bigger than that, it really does what it was doing when we first started with this plant, which is it puts on all these big, long, leggy branches, and it'll lean off to one side or another, and it'll become very sparse in the center top, which, as you can see, is exactly what we have that is being recovered right now. Now this branch right here that's in the center, I'm going to go ahead and lift that up, and I'm going to cut off all of these blooms. And the reason for that is that this branch now, instead of continuing to get longer out here on what I just cut off, now it's going to start putting on growth down here. And if you'll come up closer, David. And as he zooms in, I just want to take a quick moment to tell my wonderful hubby thanks for filming today. Probably going to be a little bit difficult to see, but right there, just above my index finger, there's a little green node right there. And that's a new branchlet. So when I force the energy in this branch to force its energy down here, because I cut these ends off, we're going to get even more growth here in the center of the plant where we want it. So now that I've cut all the side back, that's when I'm going to deal with this stuff in the center. So same thing, I've got a branch here that's leaning all the way over to one side. I'm going to go in here and just cut half of that away. So again, now I have a branch that is going to grow up from the center. Here's another that's doing the same thing. I'm going to cut that off. Now all of the rest of these are actually growing upward like they should. So I'm going to just cut away a little more of this dead wood while I'm right here. Get the plant opened up just a little bit more so that the new foliage that's coming on has plenty of light and plenty of room to grow. See, we've got a nice new branch right there coming out on old growth, and that's what we want to see. So we're gonna let that grow. I'm gonna cut off one little bit of it just to force it to put its energy into making more branches there instead of just getting longer in that spot. Again, we've got dead wood here. We'll cut that away. And cut off just a little bit more of that. Okay, so now show you what we have. We've got a plant now that is even all the way around from one side to the other. And let me back off here and show you. This is the center of the plant. So now we've got it growing out this way from the center, and we have it growing out this way from the center. And when we come back to this plant the next time, we will see that we will now have some growth out here where we need to have it. And it'll be thicker and greener overall. But that's all we cut off. And while we did cut off a decent amount of blooms this time, you'll see we still have plenty of buds on this plant that are going to pop into bloom, and this plant will be just covered in these lovely little daisies again very soon, probably in the next few days. So we'll be back to show you more about Blackfoot daisy and how we're bringing this one back from being overgrown and being leggy and being sparse in the middle and needing to be reshaped. And just 1 week later, let's follow up on this Blackfoot daisy that had no growth over here when we first started, or very, very little. You can see now we've got new growth coming out in many, many places. Here where there was none, here's the area that I showed you where this growth had come on, but now we've got all this tiny little growth here. You can see we've got growth right there down by my index finger. There's very small growth all over it, so it is going to need to be trimmed back again, and it will also need to be trimmed back on this side as well, because again, as you see, we've got the new growth coming out on it down low in the plant here. There's another place where you can see it. So that is all good. We're not getting quite as much sun and quite as much warm weather as we normally do this time of year. So this is recovering more slowly than it would if we were right in the middle of the summer still. The cool nights are not optimal for this really bursting into foliage now. But again, like I said, we've got all of these good new little branches coming out of the center of the plant. We've got good growth down low in here, and that's just going to come along nicely. Here is a final follow-up on this Blackfoot daisy that I've been working with to get it to reshape. And you'll see now, got far more foliage over here, and let me show you this as well. We now have a branch that's growing down here on the back side also, which is great. We've got a lot of good growth coming up from out of here, and you can see there's some good growth coming there, and it's just doing really good here on top. We've got more of this growth from in the center. A lot of good growth there in the center. That's great. And you can see now we've got good new growth in here too. So, and we've got buds on it all over it, and of course it's blooming as well. So doing really, really good. So all I'm gonna do today while I'm here, and it's a little bit sad because it is gonna cut off some of these blooms, but I'll, show you again. When I cut off some of these blooms, there's still buds on here. So I'm not, causing it to completely be minus blooms by doing that. So let's see what that's gonna look like. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is go through here on the top and just cut this down by not much. I'm only cutting just an inch or two off the top and off the edges here, because I don't want to cut all the buds away. See what I've done? There's bud there, there's a bud there, there's buds down in here, and there's still buds here on the side. Here's a bloom ready to come open right now. There's one there. So I don't want to do too much except open this up even more to sun down in here. Now there's a dead branch there. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off and just get that out of there so it's not blocking any light. also gonna cut back on the edges here just a little bit. Not much at all. Again, just the tiniest little bit, because this is doing well here. And I want that to bloom. But I also want this to continue to do what it's doing here and regenerate out from underneath. So I do still have dead wood in here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut some more of that away. We worked on that when I was here, not last time, but time before last. Got rid of a lot of this dead wood. And again, we're doing this just to go ahead and clean this up underneath so that any new growth that wants to come out from down inside here is able to do that. And we're also not catching a bunch of debris up underneath this plant, and just cleaning the plant up a little bit more, making it look tidier. And of course, when you cut that away, it also makes the plant look greener as well, because you don't have that brown stuff in there. So now we'll come over on this side, and I am cutting blooms away this time, but again, I need to force this plant to put even more energy into growing over here and in here, where there's currently not a whole lot of growth going on. So we've got to do all we can to encourage it to grow over there. So we haven't cut off a lot yet. I am going to go in here and cut down a little bit on the height in here, just like we did on the other side. But again, there's still buds here. So this is going to come back into bloom, no problem. So see, we've just reduced it in size by a little bit, but you can see we've got all this good new little growth coming out on the plant. It's nice and green and pretty. We've got this good branch here. We've got that new branch down on the side. So that's looking great, and this will be our last visit to this plant, and we'll show you this other one that is in good shape right now and just needs a little bit of pruning to keep it beautiful and covered in blooms. In this next section of the video, I'm going to show you a Blackfoot daisy that actually is beautifully pruned right now. It does need to be cut back a little bit, but it's covered in foliage, it's covered in blooms, and the only problem that it has is that there's one side of it that is not quite covered in foliage and blooms like it should be. Plants should grow evenly around their centers, and this one is leaning off to one side a little bit. So this section will show you just how to deal with your Blackfoot daisy so that you can keep it beautiful and blooming and even and not leaning off to one side or starting to get where it's going to lean off to one side. So let's take a look. Okay, here's the Blackfoot that I cut back just the other day, and you can see that we've got lots more growth over on this side where it was needed to balance out. Let me go back over there and show you that. We need it to be growing out over here, and so what I did the other day, you can see we've got lots of new buds on the plant. We've got lots of blooms again, and of course there will be even more as those buds come open. But once this is pruned again, what we'll do is we'll cut this down a little bit on the top, and again that'll just force it to put the energy out over on this side. Then just a week later I came and followed up, so let's take a look. Okay, I think I have a little bit better light for you for this video. This is the plant that I've cut. You can see on the front edge here I had cut it back quite a bit because the issue with this one, go around here, base of the plant. And you can see we've got, actually, I think, yeah, this plant has definitely been pruned since I was here last. So I'll go ahead and document this. We're actually wanting this to grow out from this side because the issue is that the plant is leaning away from the base. There should actually be plant growing out on this side, just like the prior Blackfoot daisy that we worked on. And so we've got growth coming out here, and that's good, but I believe there was some here that has been cut. I can see the cuts. So what we'll do today is we'll just shape this up more on this other side, which is going to force it to grow over here so that the plant is growing evenly from around its base. So I'll go ahead and start with that. And of course, we are going to be cutting off blooms, which I know is hard for people, but if you want your plants to be shaped evenly, it's just really got to be done. So we're going to start again just with going around the plant and getting our shape so that we know it's round. And you know, if you need to cut off a few things along the way as you're doing that, that's certainly fine, you know, from along what I call this top edge between the side and the very top of the plant. But we'll just keep cutting on around here, because again, if we don't cut this side back, we're never going to force it to put its energy over here where it's currently not even. So while I didn't cut this side back very much when I was here last time, let me show you what I'm talking about. This side, I am going to cut this back this time. I'm going to leave that there because that's on the side where we want the foliage to come out. But I am going to cut away a few of these blooms over here on this side. And then I'm going to go up on top, cut off a few blooms. Well, I'll still come back to that in a minute. Let me finish this. So this time, I'm going to go in here on this side again, like I did over on this side, and I'm going to cut quite a bit away also, because this really needs to be forced to grow out on that other side. You can see just from what we did last time that it's a lot thicker on this edge. So I'm even going to go ahead and cut in a little bit more. And since I showed you so thoroughly in the prior segment of this video how and why to go underneath here and remove the dead wood, I'm not going to take time to do that right now. I'm just going to concentrate on shaping away the plant so that it's going to be working toward being forced to grow over on this other side. So now I can see up on top here what actually needs to be removed now that I've got that side cut away. So I'm going to cut away quite a few blooms again, but you can still see we've got buds here. This is not going to be a plant that is devoid of blooms by me cutting away some of these blooms. But by cutting them away, I'm opening up this plant to get more sun so that it can photosynthesize the energy really well and force that energy into putting on plant over there on that other side that I just showed you. So we'll go ahead, keep cutting around here. And again, this time I'm going to cut more away on this side than I did the last time. Cut a little more away from here. Cut a few of these blooms from off the top. A few more up there. Okay, these that I showed you last time where they're laying down from, coming from there and laying down over here, you can see now that these are standing up better. So you know what, I'm actually going to go in this one that I just lifted up. I'm going to go ahead and cut that away this time. And I think I'm going to cut some of that one away as well, because we really want this to be growing upwards, not leaning over on itself, and not having it come from that side and lay over here. So I'm going to cut those off too. Okay, so now you can see, we can see more down inside the plant, which means that that's getting more light in there. So in the late part of the day, I'm aiming at the plant from the west. So there's going to be light in there, and that's going to help this to continue to grow and put on foliage. You can see now we've evened out the plant quite a bit. Now there's, from the last pruning that was done right here, we've got more growth over on that side where we need it. And we've got this little branchlet right here coming out, which is great. And we do still have some growth up here. We've opened the plant up so it can get some sun. We cut it back quite a bit here on all these other sides, but by doing that, we're really going to be forcing it to grow over here on this east side where it's really not getting so much sun. So the homeowner, when she does her pruning, it's going to depend on how much sun and how much cold weather we get, but she can, for sure, she'll need to go in here and do the cleanup of the old wood underneath here, just to open that up and get it cleaned out so that it's not catching debris like I showed you on the earlier segment. And then, as you can see from up on top here, there is the center of the plant. So this can be cut back in another several inches all around on this side once there has been some more growth here, and once the homeowner sees that there's new growth from this pruning, they can come back in here, cut this away some more, and they should see also lots of good new growth over here on this side where we need this to even out around the base of the plant. So there is our Blackfoot daisy. I want to finish off just showing you we still have nice buds on this plant. So this is going to be back in bloom just probably in a couple of days here, because we're due to get nice sun today and the next few days. So we still have a plant that's got blooms on it. It's beautiful and green, and now we've given it an even better chance to shape up and be a lovely little plant that will sit here and hold its own as the homeowner goes into the late fall and into winter. So there you go. Pruning of our Blackfoot daisies is complete, and I hope this video has helped you with the Blackfoot daisies that you have in your garden. If you don't have any yet, I hope this video has convinced you to give it a try. It's a beautiful southwestern perennial that will give your garden and your yard beauty for many years to come. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.